Nagel. She has a master's degree in regional planning from the University of Kansas. She serves in the Mid-America Regional Council as Community Development Director. In case anybody doesn't know, MARC is the Association of Local and City Governments in the Kansas City Metro. Marlene has been with MARC her entire career, serving in different capacities and supporting different programs. She currently oversees workforce development, healthcare access, emergency services and public health, 911 communications, and local government services. We are delighted that both of them are here today. We, I know, as a league are really looking forward to learning what the real scoop is on the 2020 census. So with that, I'm turning it back to them or Sandy or whomever.
Oh, we're going to give it to Jenny.
And I'm a really informal person. I have a slide deck, and just because it's really helpful for me to show visuals, I could talk to you all, the whole time, but, and I will, but this way you can kind of see the picture of what I'm trying to convey. And please, if you have questions on any of the slides, just say, hey, Jenny, what's up with this? I'm not really good at talking and maneuvering the slide deck and checking chat. So please feel free just to pipe in. And I'm really happy to be with you guys and happy to be a member of the League of Women Voters too. I really appreciate all of your help and support with voter registration too. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen, and here we go. Yes, and thank you, Evelyn. I saw that. Lori Elam is one of my favorite people. She's always on the spot. Can you guys all see my beautiful Kansas City Public Library in the 2020 census? Okay. And I just do want to say, I realize that the League of Women Voters here is much broader than the Kansas City Public Library District, but that is my focus area. I would love it if after we talk about this, if you want to go see what it looks like for your county or for a particular city in your county, we can go and do that. So please let me know if you would like to try that out later. So this is a lot of data on here, and I promise I will not ever read a whole slide because I hate it myself. But what we have here is from the Secretary of State for Missouri when he stood up the Complete Count Committee for Missouri, and really talking about the importance of the census for Missouri in terms of 1% of Missouri's population equaling $1 billion of federal funds per decade. And also me highlighting, everybody highlighting the fact that 10 years ago, we lost a representative in Congress because our population was undercounted. And there is, I was trying to figure out exactly where the $79 billion amount came from, but that's what the Missouri Foundation for Health says we lost as a result of that undercount. It's not linear. It's not as if we were undercounted by something that equates to 79 billion or 7.9%. It's just not linear. But the point for me is that we lost that money that would have helped so many vulnerable populations. And we're talking about Medicaid, and we are talking about SNAP and the Section 8 housing vouchers, and really so much more. And I wanted to give you a little bit of, here's how the census data is used. And this is from RIDE KC right down there in the lower right-hand corner. They equate, based on population, we have $8.3 million for the Kansas City area for our transit. That's one reason why population, an accurate population count is really important. Another is based on what we just experienced with the COVID-19 funds from the CARES Act, that our documented population count was under $500,000. So Kansas City did not get its own pot of money to work with. We had to go to the different counties and say, please, may we have some. And that is something that I think really grabs people when they hear that. That's just because I think there's is a common belief that we are certainly over 500,000 people right now in Kansas City, so we should have had that many. This is what it looks like with an undercount, like we had it 10 years ago. Then this comes from Mark's data, and all of this, if you summed everything up there, it's about $48 million for the greater Kansas City metro area. That's what we stand to lose. I did a little bit of new math with some new figures here, because in late April, the City Neighborhood and Planning Department said that it's not about $1,300 lost per person. It's $1,700. And so that's where that highlighted number comes. If just for Kansas City, Missouri, it's $8.3 million per year at stake if we had the same kind of undercount. And I always ask people, could we really afford to lose that much money, knowing that we have a population that is really in need? And with undercount, I want to share too that undercount and hard to count populations generally, and Marlene, correct me if I've got this wrong, but generally are kind of one and the same. The most likely populations to be undercounted are minorities, are immigrants, are especially undocumented immigrants. They're young children. The largest population that were undercounted 10 years ago were children under age 5. And when you think about what they've gone without for these 10 years, it's really frustrating. So there was a big effort, a big push to say, kiss them, then count them, your little babies, and count your newborn. You have a newborn on April 1st, even if that newborn was in the hospital and not with you at your residence, you count that sweet baby. So that sort of starts us off with the why, because that's where I like to begin. We're also going to talk about the what. And if you're familiar with the Census Bureau, they really are focused on counting everyone once and only once and in the right place, because overcounts do happen. And what happened 10 years ago was an overcount of non-Hispanic white people. While at the same time we had an undercount of Hispanics and Black people. There's a lot of reasons for that, and we can dive into that, and we will, especially when we talk about that 99% claim of all the households accounted for. We've really been trying to share that it's easy, safe, and important to respond to the census, but what we found out is that it's not as easy for everyone, because whether it's online and there's barriers there with not knowing how to use a laptop or not having access to the internet, or whether it's even understood, like, why are you asking me all these questions? That's not as easy as it could be for everybody. On the phone is something I have heard that's gone over pretty well, but also in person. A lot of people are afraid to answer the door. And the Census Bureau employees are still out there, and when I've spoken with the Burmese and the Swahili speaking populations here through the Jewish Vocational Services, I'm emphasizing to them, you can ask to, if you feel brave enough to open that door, you can say, if you don't speak my language, please send somebody who does, because I sure don't want that to be a barrier. Are there any questions so far? Okay. This is
I'm
messy.
sorry, I have a quick question.
Oh, yeah, sure, please.
If someone does speak, say, Burmese,
Mhm.
and a census worker is there, and they don't understand what the census is for, it kind of begs the question, how would they know that there would be someone they could ask for to speak Burmese?
Well, what I would hope is that the Census Bureau employee, like the enumerator, would say, you speak Burmese? Let's make sure we get that arranged for you. There's also online, like they'll have, I don't know if you saw the picture, let me see if I can, yeah. They have she has a phone right there, but I've worked with enumerators who have the tablets. They could pull up material in Burmese.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Okay.
they can even show them a video in Burmese.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they have, And they have 59 languages available online for people to have resources. So
Thank you.
you bet, you bet. Thanks for asking.
I had a question.
Yes.
It seems like I know that they do have, I guess it's federal employees who do walk around, but it seems like it would behoove Kansas City to hire their own people to ensure the count is made, and also Clay County, they have a big loss, it looks like. So do cities and counties do that?
Stacy, you know, one of the biggest things that they were trying to do in the lead up to the census kicking off was recruiting local people to be the ones who knock on the door, because they know you're more likely to respond to somebody either that you know or that you've seen in your neighborhood, or who can say, yeah, I'm from Kansas City too, or I just live down the road here. I want to make sure you're counted. They really did a big recruiting push and training push right here in the greater Kansas City area.
So so Kansas City has paid for staff to go. Oh, great. Okay.
Yep. And when I got to work with the Census Bureau enumerator at some of my outreach events, she's from Kansas City. She knows the area really well. So, but they would have been able to use more people, but it's just the storm of COVID, you know, and people being, yeah. So that did not help. Did you have a question?
I think I just saw it that the new deadline is still October 31st now.
Yeah, and I realize it's really busy, but I, as a result of court orders, the October 5, remember the October 5, 2020 target date when Ross came out and said we're going to stop, even after the court order. This is a result of the October 1st ruling that said you will communicate to your employees that everything continues until October 31st. I've even heard a rumor that, well, you can only call that, and that's counter to the message that the Census Bureau put out to all of its employees. Everyone, you're working as diligently as possible, you're enumerating as many people as possible. So it's still all hands on deck.
My other question, Jenny, was I had put it in the chat to you privately. Can you make some of these slides available to us? Because we're going to be doing notary events, and Cheryl Barnes had the great idea that we could also talk to people about the census.
I have, when I do my notary events and my voter engagement events, I always have folders with, I used to have bags with tote bags and like water bottles and cool things. I would be really happy to share, drop off. I've got fans, I've got folders, I've got pens. People really like to just be able to pick up stuff and take a look at it. Sure. And then I can also share a selection of fact sheets that the Census Bureau puts out that you can print out and put in those folders, so that if it's a matter of you're not ready to talk about that right now, why don't you take this, look it over, think about it. And also I always include the MARC, the regional councils, Regional Complete Count Committee, their bookmarks, because they have the number you can call on there and they have basic facts about the census. So it's just trying to make sure whether it's the full fact sheet or whether it's the bookmark, what's going to reach somebody.
Yeah, the bookmarks sound amazing, and the giveaways, because we've got notary events with the league set up at City Market every Saturday and Sunday through November 1st.
I love that. Let me know where I could drop those off for you, or if you want to come pick them up for me, because I have plenty to share.
Great.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm so glad. And I wanted to highlight, I love collaborating. It's just, it's awesome. So this is on the left-hand side of the screen is, here's how it's going to go. And then of course, everything came crashing down. And in the middle part here is how they shared their updated operational calendar. And I have up here the way it stands right now. And the Census Bureau did, as of April 13th, say, please let us have these extensions for responding. But the only ones who could make that happen is Congress, because you're amending the Constitution. You're saying we're going to allow you to have more time, which they've not ever really done before. So, but that's why we have the 2020 Census Deadline Extensions Act. It was introduced in mid-September, and right now it's sitting in committee. I think that's the last place that I know that it's gone. But it is also another forcing function that says, no, you're not going to be allowed to end the count early. You will continue until October 31st. And we're going to give you the time to do the quality assurance work and then deliver the apportionment accounts and the redistricting counts, which it's a bipartisan bill. Everybody recognizing if we don't have quality data, let's really think about what happens if we don't have quality data. We really have to make sure and do that quality assurance work. This is a lot of information here. Does anybody have questions on this before I move on? Okay. This is what it looks like when I'm out in the wild. This is a picture of me at the Kansas City Health Department. But this is my schedule Monday through Friday for census outreach. It's also, we have a separate calendar event for voter engagement, but they're at the exact same places. So this is what it looks like. And I have, I'm always asking, where else should I be? Where else would you like me to be? Because I have 2 laptops. Well, we'll talk about that more. I'm spoiling the next slide, but, oh, no, let me go back. I have 2 laptops. There's one right there that's dedicated to responding to the census. And you can see I've laid out also information about voting, and it's just information. I'm nonpartisan like you are. I never tell somebody, here's how you're going to vote, even though sometimes they say, who should I vote for? And I was like, let me make sure you have the information you need to make an informed decision for yourself. And I highlight 411. Love that that's also in Spanish. I think that's outstanding. And also not on here are other groups I've worked with. Like I mentioned, the Jewish Vocational Services, the Kansas City Health Department. I've done presentations for them, and also the Landon Senior Center with KU. So I'm happy. This is my jam. I love this stuff. So we've gone through why and what and when. And so now here is where. And this just shows you my focus, and we can honestly look at wherever you would like to go. I'll show you how this web page works, where this web page is. But in the upper right-hand corner, you can see, and this was as of last week, I think it's gone at maybe 0.1% for Kansas City. So Missouri is at 65.7%. We're just a little bit over 60%. And you can see that where we are really hurting is our urban core. We have seen progress. It's not all bad, but we're still, I call it a desert. And it's what it feels like. This is what the undercount looks like. And we're looking at 40 to 50%, or 30 to 40% in one track's case, 15 to 30% self-response. And that's just not really helpful for those populations.
Jenny, how does that compare to last or
I think you're freezing up on me a little bit, but you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. So we're at 60% self-response as of the 5th of October. And our final response 10 years ago was 65%.
time?
Jenny, I have a question about the map.
Yeah.
The hard orange is sparsely populated, right?
This is what the self-response looks like right now. So for example, there's I usually have hang on one second, because there's a tract, for example, that's just northeast of our northeast branch. I wish, can I play with this while yes, I can. Hang on. Yeah, I've never really done this before. So Here's our Northeast branch right here. Oh no, I want to play. Why won't it let me? Anyway, this one right here, I think. Up here. Can you see that little circle right there? So, and we can, and I'd love to, this is a fun tool. It's really helpful. But you can dive into each one of these tracts. That tract right there has 1,200 people living in there in about 500 households. So not necessarily sparsely populated at all. Really not.
Jenny, how do you react to these low count areas? I mean, do you shift efforts, move towards the worst response areas as a group? How do you react to this?
Well, I'll speak for myself and with what I do, but I know Marlene's been working really hard with a lot of great partners. With my work, I reach out to the Northeast community because if you didn't know, our Northeast branch right there is undergoing renovations. It's just not a place where I can sit out or join, or be there because it's so small. So I've reached out to Northeast community partners and asked, where would you like me to be? And I haven't heard back from anybody yet. And that could be, hey, we're working on stuff and we really don't need you. But I try to reach out, like where I see where I see really low self-response, I want to be there and I want to help out. But Marlene, would you mind jumping in and just sharing?
Sure. One of the things that we did really dating back to 2019 was we formed a regional complete count committee to support our local governments in the metro area on both sides of the state line, and then to assemble a network of community organizations that could help us with outreach, many of whom, Jenny works with. And as we have been monitoring the response rates, well, even before that, but as we've been monitoring the response rates, we've been pushing out information to that network and resources like door hangers, flyers, bookmarks, and other information to help and to encourage them to help us in communicating with the people that they serve or that know their organization, and encouraging them to respond. Before COVID hit in March, we had identified over 130 community organizations and the libraries across the metro area. And we were all set up to offer assistance at facilities around the area for people to have help in answering the census. And obviously with the shutdown in March, we had to sort of pivot to a different approach, but we have been sending regular information out and working to help organizations and communities sort of respond to what we're seeing in terms of the response rates. But it's not surprising. This is kind of what we saw in 2010. I will say there's more challenges this time around, obviously, even without the COVID challenge. People are less trustful of government. There's the online option confuses and concerns some people. There's just lots of reasons why this time around it's even more challenging.
Do you get any help, or do you use any programs on broadcast media, radio and TV?
So we were fortunate to have funding support from the Health Forward Foundation, the REACH Healthcare Foundation, and then a equity fund at the Community Foundation that a number of foundations contributed to. And our organization and a number of community groups received dollars to help with outreach and promotion. And so we have continued to use media, social media, regular media, to get the word out. We actually, this last few weeks, we used a service where you can text message to certain to households in certain zip codes a message about answering the census, that it's not too late, and here's the way that you can respond. And so we've done that in targeted zip codes that have the lowest response rates. So we're trying different approaches to raise awareness that it's not too late, and here's how it's easy to, to participate.
You've also been working with harvesters too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right, Marlene?
I'm sorry?
That you've been working with harvesters too, like at food distribution sites?
Right. Throughout the campaign, we have partnered with harvesters, and we've provided lots and lots of flyers and other information. We did some bags to help promote the census and distribute them at food pantries around the region.
What about the sports teams? I know they've been helpful on voter turnout and registration. What about the Royals and the Chiefs?
I can't say that they have specifically done much. I think Sporting KC early on did some work with the unified government to promote the census, but I'm not certain that the Royals and Chiefs have.
I have a question as far as when you're at, I was an enumerator earlier, and I was told what doors to go to because they didn't have information on those households. But when you're at the library or any of these other places, you can't actually have them fill out the census. I mean, like I could, because I had a special phone and I was able to do it. So you're just informing people about the census or what when you're at the library location?
When I'm at the library, I have a laptop that, again, was part of a grant from the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation that for the express purpose of,
Okay.
Here, it goes direct, like you click on a browser, it goes directly to my2020census.gov. And I'm there and I make it really clear to them, I don't work for the Census Bureau. I cannot do this for you. So I can show you how to use the laptop because a lot of people haven't used laptops before. And I can point like here, you'll click on this link because you don't have your 12-digit code. And I'm there if they have any questions. It won't move forward. Oh, you have to type the race you identify with in this box. That's how you're going to move forward. It's all just kind of coaching them with the technology, backing off of seeing or being a part of any of their private information.
Okay, thank you.
And they can answer, by phone. And so having the phone number, the toll-free phone number for them, at these events that Jenny and others have hosted is also another way to just help them be able to complete the census so they don't have to be at home. They just need access to the information.
And there's 12 other languages besides English that they do response by phone. And that was designed to capture 99% of the population here in the United States. And we're really aware that in Kansas City, we're missing. We do have gaps in if you were to just try to call by phone. But that's why we really do emphasize the 59 different languages for the guide to responding to.
There was a question in the chat about contacting the local churches. Are you working through the local churches for this?
We have made contact with a number of faith-based organizations and asked for their help. And there have been a couple events of kind of communicating specifically about the census on kind of a certain Sunday where they've kind of designated it around the community, and a number of faith leaders have been really helpful in that promotion. So yes, I mean, we see that as an important step. And I know that in particular, Wyandotte County, which had a very active complete count committee, that was one of their strategies that they felt would be most effective in reaching out to, particularly to vulnerable populations that tend to have more distrust of sort of traditional government.
I remember too that one of the pastors in Kansas City actually recorded a video saying, please respond to the census, trying to reach out that way too. Go ahead, Amanda, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So as you said in the very beginning of your presentation, we're all pretty aware that Kansas City has grown in population a great deal in the last 10 years. And the response rate is, I think so far, what, 60% as opposed to 65% in, is it Missouri or the Kansas City area?
65% in for Missouri, 60% for the Kansas City area.
Okay, so 60% for the Kansas City area. The information that was sent out from the census, did that come based upon the census 10 years ago or based upon more current information from city and county government?
So maybe, Jenny, I could help answer that one. Before the census began, the Census Bureau worked, we had a role in it, and we worked very closely with all the city and county governments across the metro area, providing them with up-to-date address listings so that they would have addresses for every household or every home in the region. And then we also worked with them on the census geography of how they're going to report the data by census tract and census block, which is important for all sorts of planning purposes. But they did get an up-to-date inventory, and now that was a year before it started. And then there were opportunities since then for local governments to provide up-to-date data as new homes are built or things have changed. So
wouldn't they have, so they have a baseline from which to start, right, compared to 10 years ago. So they know population has increased at least by such and such percent based on the fact that they mailed more, that they had to mail more censuses, I guess, out based on new home builds or whatnot, correct?
Correct.
So,
and
doesn't that give them a basis for some pretty intelligent estimation?
So, I don't know that I can go into a lot of depth about this, but, if we end up at October 31st with 65% response, and that's going to be the situation across the nation. There will be some communities that will have higher rates of response, but there will be many that have even lower. And so the Census Bureau has a process for really looking at the data, looking at other data sets, and trying to adjust the final numbers so that they get as close to accurate as possible.
So the final numbers will not be based strictly upon the census responses by the individual people.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm sorry, these questions might seem ignorant. I'm just very new to this.
I will say there is concern among statisticians who monitor all of this and rely on the census data for many things about the processes that have been used in the past and that are likely to be used this time around. I think that's why everyone feels that getting as complete a count as possible is really important, particularly to marginalized communities that tend to always be undercounted and underrepresented.
Donna?
Quick question in terms of,
thank you.
My neighbor did not respond and had a census worker come out, and she wasn't home. She was gone that weekend. And so he asked me questions. Does that help? Is it used in any way or what?
That's called, that's one of the ways that they do that. They count by proxy in terms of, they do interview neighbors. Like, how many people do you think live in there? Or do you know who lives in there? And can you, like, what are their names and guesstimate their birthdays? Because they'll do that. that is one of the methods for reaching out. Usually they don't do that like right away. Usually it's about 5 tries, and then they'll try a different method. But they usually do try to reach out quite a bit. Does that help, Donna?
Thank you. Yes.
Sure.
I have a
And I saw
question.
the question about the homeless, and that's where I would say that the Census Bureau has made a lot of outreach to providers of services to people experiencing homelessness, so that they work with them very closely, and they had specific times where they would go, where they went out and they did a count of homeless people in different areas. I know when at my outreach events, I meet homeless people and I say, you know that you can respond online right now to the census, telling your story. And that includes indicating that you were homeless on April 1st. So that's my handle on that situation. Marlene, do you have anything else on that?
I will say that every year that homeless population is counted through what's called a point in time survey that local agencies that serve that population participate in. It's done usually in late January. So they have developed, some really sophisticated ways to identify the homeless population where they are, from shelters to camps to, other places. But obviously, with the housing challenges given COVID, there are a lot of people who are living in lots of places that are hard to identify and hard to count. So it is a challenge.
I have a question.
Marlene?
This is Reva Capillary. On Sunday mornings at Westport Presbyterian Church, we do a shower ministry for the homeless. We don't ask questions. Some of them may have a place to sleep, but that we get a lot of the same people every single week. I don't know if that would be a place to talk about that or not.
Well, the only thing I would say is that you could encourage people if they have not been, if they don't believe they've been counted. And I don't know what kind of, frankly, I don't know, and Jenny, maybe you might, what information the Census Bureau collects on the homeless, if it's simply their name and the location that they were identified as being present at that particular time. I mean, the problem is that homeless persons and families tend to move often, and so going different places at different times, you're likely to see someone more than one time. And so trying to determine whether they have actually been counted already is probably a challenge.
Okay, thank you.
I encourage people to, and I show them how to walk through it to indicate that they were homeless. And then there is a text box where you can describe where you were on April 1st. And then they go through just like they do for anybody else. How many people were with you? And then all of the same questions that they ask anybody who's at a residence. So race and age and gender and all of that. So.
Alice?
Since it's been such a long time since it started, 2 questions. One, if a person doesn't remember, should they redo it? And will it be a duplicate count? Will it kick out the original one? And the second question is, what about the people who've been evicted? How are we finding them and getting them counted?
Well, so for the first question, if you're not sure, I always encourage people, please go right ahead and do that again, because there's definitely ways for them to dedupe entries. Like, this is the same last name, this is the same birth date, this is the same age, they way more complicated than that, but they have ways of getting to that accuracy of once and only once and in the right place. So if anybody has any question, because usually, it's been such a strange year, and even thinking back to April 1st, I just encourage them, please, make sure you're counted, do it right now. Finding people who are evicted, it's really about where you were on April 1st. So if they were, evicted after April 1st, they would still be responding about where they lived on April 1st.
I think the challenge is obviously being able to identify them and find them. But one of the groups that we knew from the beginning would be hard to count are renters. Mm-hmm. And even with COVID, sort of thinking about the doubling up of families and friends because of eviction or loss of income. Many people were hesitant to tell the census how many people were actually in a dwelling unit because maybe it violated their lease. And so, you know, that's part of the challenge in getting an accurate count for all different groups of our community is just sort of the challenges they face with their daily lives.
Stacy Webb had a question.
Thanks. So in those desert areas, have they thought about putting up just yard signs every so often?
They're out there. They
are. Okay.
Yeah, they're out there. Like and even a sign like that says it's not too late. I know districts 3 and 5 are some of the most undercounted in the urban core, and they have really worked hard to get the word out in their district meetings and everything like that to say it's important, it's still happening, please respond.
Okay, that's great. And then I want to say, Amanda, that was exactly my question. And so what does the government partner with mass mailing? I mean, the mass mailing people can find us, I would imagine. You know, how do they calculate that?
So again, they're counting people based on homes, based on, dwelling units. And so every dwelling unit should have received a census form based on the information that the city and county governments gave to the Census Bureau. I will say that one of the strategies for the Census Bureau to adjust their counts has to do with looking at commercial databases. So they're trying to take advantage of perhaps more sophisticated marketing and other data. But sort of how they do that is kind of subject to question.
This is a question that I think anyone here could probably answer. I believe you mentioned that, is it District 3 and District 5? That are the ones we're waiting on them. Okay. And if anyone has the knowledge on this, please let me know. But I believe those are two of the districts that have the least access to the internet, aren't they? So that is probably one of the failures of our infrastructure more than it is the Census Bureau, I would think at this point.
And I would just say too, one of the things I want to highlight about this map is those grid marks right there show you where 40% or more households have dial-up internet access or no internet access at all. And you can see that some of them are light blue, and like the one that's the darkest, dark brown, orange or whatever, that's not the case for them. Like they have more access than other areas. So it's not necessarily a correlation between not having a lot of internet, not having internet access. I agree that it's a barrier, because if you're not getting the news, if you're not getting the text messages, if you're not getting all of this stuff because of the digital divide, then yeah, you're missing out. And I can tell you that there's a number of people who I meet every day who don't even know what the census is. Like I've been swimming in this water for so long, it's, that I'm like, how do you not know what this is? I mean, I don't say that in my head. I'm like, how can you not know? But
no, sure.
It's just, there's so much going on. And there are people who honestly just trying to survive every day. It's all about where am I going to get food? How am I going to, find a house? How am I going to find a job? And the census is like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't have time for this right now. I have way more pressing things to do. And I just try to emphasize for them, it's 10 minutes or less. It will make the difference for the next 10 years, especially like if they're holding babies or something. It's like, think about what you would like your child to have for the next 10 years. Make sure that they are counted. I try not to be too pushy, but it's just really about having a seat at that table.
And so I'm looking at the map right now. And so I'm not sure which districts are in which parts of, I'm sorry, I don't have our districts other than like mine and the one right next to it memorized. So the orange part, which district is that?
Which orange part are you talking
I'm
about?
sorry, you put a red circle around.
Oh, up in Northeast? Oh, golly, Marlene, do you know? Does anybody else know? I'm not really, I have it mapped out on another picture, but
Yeah,
I'm with you, Amanda. I don't have it.
it'd either be 2 or 3. I don't,
Okay,
I think 5 is further south.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
And I just really wanted to cover a little bit more about what's up at the top there, because that shows you that really optimistic looking 99.9%, right? And we've talked about it a little bit. What that looks like is that's the self-response numbers, that's the non-response follow-up numbers, and then the total, of course, the enumerated, the households accounted for as of October 5th. And like Marlene was saying, there's a lot of questions about how are you making that happen? A lot of it, I'm sure, is the knocking on the doors and getting people to respond. But a lot of it is, like what happened with Donna, by proxy. So you're relying on a neighbor, you're relying on somebody else to tell you who's in that house. And then they also do things like filling in, like if they don't get a hold of a proxy, if they don't get hold of anybody else there, they'll use administrative records. And we're talking about things like Social Security applications. We're talking about, I think, even tax filings, like what is this, what do we see in IRS holdings for this household? But one of the things that several of the negative points about that is, if, you know, we were talking about how nobody really wanted to share how many people lived at a residence because maybe it violates their Section 8 requirements or something else. So you have, they call them concealed households. So how would you know? How would anybody know if the whole point is to say, I don't want anybody to know how many people live in here, or that we have, you know, mattresses or not mattresses, but we have 10 people sleeping on the floor in here. Like, that's not going to be common knowledge to somebody living around there. But they also say that people who are going to be left out with administrative records are the undocumented immigrants, of course, homeless people, like we've mentioned several times, and like you were mentioning, Alice, people who were evicted. How do you trace that? How do you track that? Also, formerly incarcerated people. That's another group that can really be. And I would say all of this can include and their children, because that's their part of the story. So they talk about how these vulnerable populations most likely don't have the quantity or quality of administrative records as other populations. So you're going to get some populations counted super well, other populations not so much. And I foot stomp this, I feel like, almost every time we talk about it, but it's the undercounted people are the ones who most need the programs that the census population count relies on. So it's really almost painful to think about that. So that's why we've been stressing the complete count. It's why we've been stressing self-response, because there's nothing like having your own voice. This is sort of a depressing slide, so we're going to move on here if I can.
Oh, Jenny, may I say something? This is Evelyn Maddox, and I want you to know that I did personally attend the Kansas City Regional Census Count Committee meeting, several of those meetings, and certainly took the message back to the League of Women Voters, to our state board, to Missouri State Board and the local board. And so this is very informative. You know, we are all learning so much from you this morning. Thank you so much. But so the two things I want you to know is, on a national basis, the League of Women Voters has been very committed to have our volunteer members carrying the message out there to the public. Now, on the flip side, though, boy, have we been inundated, you know, with the need to register voters, to need to inform voters about the changing conditions for voting in Missouri. But so I want you to know we've got many members who have really been trying hard to get the message out. But now that voter registration is closed, our members, I do believe, will be better able to just more comprehensively integrate this message everywhere. In Missouri, we have over 1,200 members working in about 13 different counties. But your message today is very timely, because now that now the registration is done, we still need to carry the message out there about changing addresses on registration, need to carry the message about getting notaries. And let's hope every one of the members listening today, it will carry the message to their friends, neighbors, and other league members to get out there and work. Because Jenny, we could still make a lot of progress, can't we, in this time?
I am an optimist still. I really am. And I'm really grateful that we have the rest of this month, because I'm with you. Like, my focus really was alongside yours, get registered to vote, understand what's on the ballot. Here's what's coming up. Do you need a mail-in ballot? And all of this stuff. So it's almost nice to have the shift to, do you need a mail-in ballot? Do you need a notary? I'm here for you. By the way, did you respond to the census? And so I'm looking forward to sharing the different fact sheets that I've shared. And I think I mentioned before, like folders, giveaways that might attract people to respond to the census. I'll be really happy to do that.
Going old school, I remember political campaigns and films of them where there were speaker trucks driving around blaring out messages. And I've seen, digital boards tied to the back of trucks that, do advertising. How much of that kind of analog sort of way of getting the message out, it's sort of like yard signs on wheels. How do you have any of that kind of thing? It just seems crude, but effective.
I wouldn't say crude at all. I know that the Complete Count Committee worked with Ride KC to get the message on, and others to get messages on billboards, to get messages on buses. Is that right, Marley?
Yes. Yeah, and we've used a lot of targeted radio. We have relied a lot on social media, but there's only so much money and so many different strategies that, but we have relied a lot on our community partners to both tell us ways to be effective in getting the message out and to help us in pushing out that message.
Thanks.
And do you know what Minnesota's doing? They have a 75% rate. And so what are they doing to get that extra 10, 15%?
I can tell you that the state of California appropriated $100 million to put toward a complete count in the census, and other states have put large sums of dollars toward it. That's not been the case in Missouri and Kansas. Most of our communities have had limited resources. If you look at the demographics of certain areas, certain states, the counts are higher for white populations, for suburban locations. And so, I think Minnesota might be a state where, because they tend to have fewer persons of color proportionately, that perhaps their count is higher because of that. We'd have to look at in detail to really be able to analyze it.
That tracks with their voter turnout.
I'm just going to cover this really quickly here. This is on the left-hand side is a photograph of what it looks like. I started outreach in the summer in July, and this is where the hotspot came in really handy. I'd have my table, and then I'd have 6 feet away the table with the laptop where people could respond. Those are all the swag bags that I got from our Census Bureau partnership specialist with some fun things in there. And I think that was helpful to be out there. And you can see the Count Me in KC sign to try to bring people in. But also at the library, we're not open, but you can reserve a computer for an hour. So that would be in addition to, like, hey, if you just want to go inside and respond, reserve that computer and you'll knock it out in 10 minutes and be able to do something else. But but the laptop has been really helpful. I think if I should have done my metrics better, but like, I think it was just last month, I think it was about 30 people who responded to the census because of that. And it's not a lot, but I figure even a drop in the ocean is still a drop. So I'm happy about that. This is just a quick rundown of what the American Library Association tells me I can't do and what I can do. So I think I described that a little bit already. And these are resources, and again, I'll share this whole slide deck with you. These links will work to all those guides. Like if you know of populations that need guides to responding, that link will take you right there. There was a lot of questions about homeless populations, but also group housing, and that's covered right there in one of the fact sheets too. So that kind of wraps it up for me, but I can't tell you how glad I am, Marlene, that you were able to be with us this morning, because I just really appreciate your leadership on this for the greater Kansas City area. I'm so very grateful to you.
Well, and I would say the same, Jenny, of you and all of the work that you have done. It's been your guidance and leadership has really helped all of us. So thank you.
Thank you both.
Does anybody want to play with the stuff? Because I'll stop sharing this and we can go. I don't know how much time we have. I'm sorry, I should have. But I'll share the link. I'll stop sharing here and I'll share the link in the chat session.
I just wanted to say thanks. Oh, sorry. That's all. I just wanted to say thank you because I have learned so much this morning.
Donna has another question.
Yeah, how about the out-of-state college students? They're counted, they're in class on April 1st in Kansas City. I assume they should be counted in our.
No, go ahead, Jenny.
I know, you go ahead, Marlene. That's good.
You know, that was a big question because of the COVID response and how so many colleges actually closed to, and sent their students either into quarantine or home. And it created a lot of questions about where they should be counted. I mean, technically the census says where you are living at the time. So technically, if they were living, say, in Lawrence, going to KU, that's where they should be counted. But it has created a lot of questions and confusion because so many college students went home.
I do still have a question about how Wilbur Mills came up with the 99%. You said both answers were right. So how?
Right. I can show you the slide again, but
you already told us that I missed it.
No. And I just also wanted to catch Alice's question about babies born after April 1st. They're going to have to wait till 2030 because everything is focused on the census day, April 1st. I think they should count all babies, but no, I'm just kidding. Because yeah, that's just the rule. That is just the rule. But yeah, so Wilbur Ross comes up with 99% because he counts the self-response rate. And then he says, my enumerators were in your area and have made up that 30+%. And that's what we were talking about with like, how do they do that exactly? Sometimes by knocking on doors and getting people to respond at their homes, and sometimes using proxies, like Donna was a great example of that. Sometimes by using administrative records, which are not necessarily, as Marlene pointed out, super statistically reliable, and they do leave out populations. So that's where we're at with the 99%.
Thank you.
Sure. And I shared the link in the chat. Again, if anybody wants to play, you can really tailor that to state, to your own, city, your own county, and make that tailored to you.
Great.
We're going to close questions unless anybody has one more. That, Jenny, Marlene, thank you. You guys are amazing. The sophistication of this process is wonderful. And to me, the huge collaboration that you guys are sort of the tip of the spear of is wonderful. So, you know, it's one of those things that I imagine that collaboration and group of people is valuable for any kind of efforts going forward, no matter what the thing is. I think I was at one of those early meetings at Mark, and I said, look, if we can get this group to do all of this kind of thing, how about getting out the vote? Use this same group to do getting out the vote and make Kansas City the higher voter turnout in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always an aspiration. But thank you again very much.
Thanks for inviting us.
We're going to do some announcements now. Mary Lindsay, you want to talk a little bit about your crazy No on 3 activities?
Sure. First off, you know, phone banking goes on. It now, all of the volunteer opportunities with phone banking are on the on the League of Women Voters KC, our website. So anybody who is interested in doing that, please go there and check it out, or you could call me. But if you do it, if you're doing the phone banking, even not through us, like Amanda, please track your hours, because that is valuable to the League to know about volunteer hours that are spent. The other thing going is, I don't suppose we have the PowerPoint of that, Sandy?
Your sandwich board?
Yeah. I mean, if we don't, it's fine. I'll just describe it. That another thing that we are working on, and that we could have lots and lots of people in it also, is having a sandwich board, No on 3 thing going on. I mean, initially it was just at the stadium was my original thought on it. But then it's like, you know, once you figure out how to do the sandwich boards, we could have bunches of sandwich boards doing it at bunches of polling places, you know, for all of November 3rd. But then also, you know, we're going to have the satellite places, and we could be doing it there too. The point of it is, whether it's phone banking or whether it is directly talking to people through the sandwich boards. Okay, yeah, there. If y'all can see that. Anyway, that's the front, and then there is something different but similar on the back, all with information to hopefully convince people quickly about No on 3, because people don't know about Amendment 3. And I have done a fair amount of phone banking, and I bet Amanda would attest to this also, that, you know, the first thing you do is ask people, are you familiar with Amendment 3? And the answer is almost uniformly no. And so they're happy to hear about it because they don't know anything, and now they know it's going to be on the ballot. But we're not going to catch them all through phone banking. So that is the reason I think it would be valuable if we had a direct talking to people as they're arriving at the polls effort going. And it doesn't have to be with, I mean, I got those colorful things off of the Clean Missouri website, but people could make their own, you know. I mean, I'm not creative, but, you know, for people who want to put their own thing on the boards, that would be great too. So anyway, I would love it if enough people were interested that we could actually have a Zoom meeting about planning it and how, you know, how much to develop it or not.
Thanks, Mary. Keeping on that same theme, there is a Zoom webinar on No on 3 featuring Jack Danforth and Sean Mickelson on October the 19th, a week from this Monday, 7 to 8 p.m. Pat Goodwin has put this in the calendar for lwvkc.org. So feel free to attend this Zoom webinar. And as you may know, former Senator Danforth has been a vocal supporter of Amendment 1 and certainly a big detractor and critic of Amendment 3. So this is a good get by Southwest Missouri League, and everybody's invited. So look on the website for that.
And it's not Amendment 1 on this ballot that he's a supporter
No.
2 years ago of Clean Missouri.
Right, right. He supported Clean Missouri, and he's very opposed to Amendment 3. So Pat Goodwin passed along. She and Peg are super busy on the voter guides, but Vote 411 is active starting Monday. So pass the word. It'll go live, or I'm sorry, it has been active since last Monday. And so go there and pass it along to your friends. On Monday, we'll have 12,000 voter guides to be picked up and delivered to over 150 locations around the city and in the surrounding 4 counties. So Pat and Peg will contact members who reserve voter guides to distribute these to family and friends by tomorrow. If you don't hear from them, let them know. And if you forgot to make a request for voter guides, just let Pat or Peg know. There should be enough to cover what you might want to pass around. From Donna, she wants to remind people that they can still sign up to be a poll monitor. Go to protectthevote.net. Sue, I think, said something in the chat here also that AAUW is sponsoring voter protection training with Missouri Voter Protection Coalition on the 14th from 4 to 5:30. So just let her know if you'd like to attend, and she can send you the link on Zoom training. And that's at suescheinman46@gmail.com. It's in the chat. Oh, let's see, what else? City Market notary events every Saturday and
Sandy.
Sunday. Hello?
I was going to say thank you, Sandy.
I'm trying to keep up here. At the City Market, we're doing notary events every Saturday and Sunday through the 1st of November. There'll be 2 notaries and 1 member for Get Out the Vote information. Sign up in the volunteer section of our website if you'd like to participate in that. The River Market has been a real hot spot for us. We're getting a lot of good play down there. A couple of other things. We have been able to tie up with the Kansas City Area Transit Association, KCATA, and they are putting out bus posters for us. And they look like this. And it's this is a screenshot of one of them in the back of their bus shelters. These also play on digital boards inside and the buses and at places like Paseo and so forth. So this is what we've got. A little shout out to Vote 411, message in Spanish and English. And this is as much as they would do for us on the bottom as far as League of Women Voters goes. So this is going to be an ongoing partnership with KCATA. I'm hoping every 2 years. So at least we've got some more coverage in that regard. Let's see, what else? We were just contacted by the League National. Morgan Murray reached out with a $1,000 grant done in conjunction with Alamo Draft House. The intent was for voter registration and get out the vote. Well, we passed the voter registration piece, but we're looking for ways to do something at Alamo Draft House. And right now they're not open. But I do believe they're going to let us use their digital board outside to run messages about voting, voter information, and so forth. We're yet to go through all of that, but I think that's going to be another opportunity. The grant will also be used to print buttons, work at events between now and the election as far as getting out the vote and voter information. So look for things there that will pop up in the website. We also have a grant from the state, from the League in Missouri, to do radio spots on KKFI. So we're going to have 2 a day starting on Monday through the election. It's going to say the following. Support for KKFI by the League of Women Voters of Missouri Education Fund. Established in 1919, the League continues to educate and inform voters. Information on the candidates and ballot issues can be found at vote411.org. and then they go through the whole spelling. That's vote411.org. You can learn more about how to vote safely in the November 3rd election at lwvmissouri.org, and then they go through that. Your vote is your voice. I think we're going to try to work in LKC in that too. So, Ann Calvert is going to record this message, and we'll hear Ann's voice twice a day on KKFI between Monday and the election. Are there any other announcements? Alice, you need to unmute.
On your ballot, if you're voting in Kansas City or Jackson County, you will likely find an item about adding a tax to the phone bills for cell phones about 911. And over a month ago or two, I had a long conversation with the head of Mid-America Regional Council before this ever surfaced to my knowledge. And I don't think you augment or add to a system you haven't evaluated. And part of our law enforcement criminal justice reform needs to start not only with the front line, but the big picture, which is 911. It is overused, oversold, and I think misused, and sometimes creates problems that result in injury, high stress, confusion, or death, or so forth. So I think we need a community metropolitan evaluation, basic to planning and implementation of programs. You always evaluate with the users. And this is, I mean, I don't know where it came from, but it makes sense on the ballot. And I'm not saying to vote against it. I'm saying stop everything, evaluate a system that's the front end of our criminal justice reform. I feel passionately about it, and I'm working on an op-ed, but the way you can better create a system, it needs to be connected to 211 and First Call and other systems, so we don't send police with assault weapons in their holsters to settings, like 10 police officers to a setting where one person is disruptive. I think that you'll see on the ballot, it makes eminent sense, but I say stop everything and evaluate it. And we, the league, could be a part of helping to get community input on how to make our system and our city safer and services routed to people who have the skills to solve those problems. End of comments.
That's a structural law enforcement reform measure that strangely funnels through 911, but very much so.
Some of the league members who've been around longer remember when Representative Jeannie, I can't remember her last name, from Blue Springs, but she has tried to do this through the legislature, trying to get 911 coverage for the whole state, and they wouldn't do it because it raised taxes. And so now she's going county by county because there are some spots in the county that have no 911 coverage, and because there are fewer and fewer landlines to support it. So I think that is the history, some of the history on it that we've heard about in the past.
Once again, Missouri is the only state in the nation that it does it this way. Any other news, information, comments?
I have a quick one. After the game on Channel 41 News, we're going to get maybe a little shout out because I was interviewed yesterday along with Andres from the Guadalupe Center. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his last name. And Malia Hatley from Voters Helping Voters. I suspect I'll be mostly cut out because it was about the Latino vote. And so Andres had much more to say about it than I did, and much better than I would have. But watch it anyway.
And when is that going to be?
Sunday night after the football game on Channel 41.
41. In their news?
Yes, their news.
Okay. And then, I have a shout out for the fall conference that League of Women Voters of Missouri put on. And it was excellent information that was recorded, and it is on their website. So if you have a minute, go take a peek at that. It was excellent. I think Evelyn is on and she may want to elaborate on that.
I have a quick question. Our meetings are recorded. Are they shown on Facebook or YouTube?
Oh, I don't know. Mary, Karen,
I think they get uploaded to YouTube.
Right. Right now we're live streaming this one to Facebook, and then we're also recording it, and it will be, it should be loaded then onto YouTube.
Thank you. Because I had several new members say they couldn't make it, running kids around, and I told them they could go to our website. But I didn't know whether to tell them YouTube or Facebook. Thank you.
Well, they're both places, and they can just click on the links. On our website, there are links that take you right to Facebook or YouTube. And we also, for the meetings, we add them to our, if you go to the monthly programs section of the league, the monthly programs from the About Us monthly programs, recent programs are available here as a button, and it just contains all the links to the most recent videos.
Thank you.
So it's important to say how amazingly helpful and how much better we look through the efforts of our social media team and our technology team, led by Mary and by Wendy and Terry Lane and others who have really extended our reach. Our brand looks better than ever. Our information is much more robust. The access is easy. I think anyone can direct folks to our website and feel pretty proud about what's available there. So great.
Sandy?
Great, thanks.
Sandy, this is Elizabeth. Could I make one more pitch? Outside the Kemper Museum on Monday between 2 and 7, there are going to be artists creating something or other, encouraging people to vote. So if you're in that area during that time, please stop by. Good opportunity to get a picture taken, I think.
Monday
between 2 and 7. It's called a civic walkway.
And where is it going to be? At the Art Institute?
No, at the Kemper Museum.
Oh, Kemper.
Yeah.
Is Anne Gachet part of that?
Anne Gachet is part of the Kemper. Whether she's specifically a part of this program, I don't know.
Okay. Great. Well,
would that be, I'm sorry, would that on Monday be an appropriate time for somebody to be there, perhaps with a sandwich board, talking about no on 3?
Yes, indeed. Go for it.
Yes. Absolutely.
Elizabeth, would you put that in the chat? I can't hear for somebody's radio.
Sure. Okay.
I love it. Mary is always thinking.
Well, it sounded like an opportunity.
Okay, we're about almost to 11:30. If there's nothing else, I appreciate everybody showing up today. It's been good.
Sandy, could I ask a couple of questions, please?
Of course.
One is, I picked up one of the no on 3 yard signs. I've gotten a lot of reaction to it and a lot of people saying, oh, where in the world did you get your sign? Because we would like to also be more of a part of spreading the word. Are there any extra signs that through the league or?
Let's, I will pose that to Rita. We had Rita be the sign wrangler and she did a lot of ordering through people's requests on the website. I would imagine that Lexi would come across with more. I think there were $5 or so a piece still. I know I had about 50 here that got dropped off and all of those have gone out. Okay. So let's, I'll pose that to Rita and see if we can raise some more signs.
I picked up some signs from Peg just a couple days ago, and she sounded to me like she had more.
Okay, she did. I know Peg bought 25, I think.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna say I was gonna pick some signs up here in the next week also. So I live in Waldo. I
okay.
don't know how many I was gonna pick up, but if you
From
think
whom?
there's a, I spoke with Lexi Amos. She's just
Okay.
sent a message over to the local office and said have some signs ready for her.
Yeah,
So-
she's the local source. So yes.
Sandy, I don't know if, I know Evelyn had gotten those signs for the Northland. I don't know if all those got distributed, that Joe Hunt and Cheryl Eufinger had. I don't know if there were any of those that weren't distributed, picked up.
Evelyn?
Sandy, you're muted if you're talking to us.
You're right. I will pose the question to Rita about getting additional signs from Lexi, and she'll seek that from members. And as long as you're looking on the website and paying attention to your e-voter, we'll go that way. Okay. Well, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
The speakers were excellent. Thank you.
Yes.
Bye, y'all. Have a good weekend and stay safe.